faithfully delivering value by interpreting great books worldwide. Hi, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today we're diving into the book Misbehaving. The subtitle, What Causes Your Irrational Behavior? Ever had that experience? Like during Singles Day, buying stuff you don't need just to hit a discount threshold, or taking a cab to spend because of a 10-1 coupon?
According to Richard Thaler, the Nobel Prize-winning author, these are irrational behaviors.
What other irrational things do you do in your daily life?
Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below.
Thaler is seen as the pioneer of behavioral economics theory. So, what is behavioral economics? It's a branch of economics that studies the psychological, cognitive, and emotional factors behind how people make economic decisions. And the book we're covering today is basically the definitive guide to behavioral economics. In this book, Thaler lists out everyday irrational economic behaviors, thoroughly analyzes the limits of traditional economics in explaining real problems, and uses behavioral principles to help people examine common mistakes, leading to better financial choices.
Next, I'll break down the book's key points into two parts.
Part 1. Why the rational economic agent assumption in traditional economics is flawed. Part 2. What causes irrational behavior? First up, Part 1. Why the rational man idea in economics is flawed. This starts from traditional economics foundations. Just like physicists studying mechanics often assume objects as mass points with no volume, traditional economics, for research ease, also assumes economic agents as fully rational beings. The rational agent excludes unstable human factors and always makes optimal rational choices. For example, give a rational agent 100 yuan to invest, and they'll assess risks in markets rationally to maximize returns. This is the rational agent hypothesis, and economists have built increasingly complex models on it. But it's been found that many models based on this assumption have huge errors when explaining real-world economics. Thaler calls this systematic error. He argues that the rational economic man ignores the complexity of human behavior, leaving many traditional economic models built on this shaky foundation. They expose limitations when explaining everyday economic phenomena, predicting economic operations, and market trends. For example, Black Monday in 1987, when the global stock market crashed, with no scandals, wars, or major news to trigger it. But the crisis just happened, baffling mainstream economists who champion rationalism and efficient markets. Therefore, Thaler believes the rational economic man in traditional economics doesn't exist in reality. Humans can only achieve bounded rationality. So why is that? There are mainly three reasons. First, because human perception, memory, judgment, and decision-making stem from our imperfect brains and nervous systems, making full rationality impossible. Second, rationalism claims that if the stakes are high enough, people can make correct choices. And in real life, people avoid repeating mistakes through learning and practice, gradually getting closer to rationality. But is that really true? Behavioral economists think people's energy and abilities are limited, with few chances to practice major decisions. For instance, in big decisions like buying a house, getting a mortgage, or job hunting, stakes are high but learning opportunities are scarce, making it hard to gain experience and approach rational decisions. Whereas in small daily decisions like grocery shopping, people have more chances to learn and practice making better choices.
Plus, human rationality is hugely limited by our own capabilities. How smart and rational must one be to get close to the theoretical rational economic man with limited learning? I
Additionally, decisions are influenced by impulses, intuition, preferences, and other factors. For example, after a big meal, you're more likely to decide to eat healthy and lose weight soon after. But often you quit after one meal, quickly tempted by tasty food again, stuck in a news cycle. That's why Thaler proposed the theory of self-control in his later research. Thaler's third point against the rational economic man lies in absolute rationality. The concept itself lacks standards because there's always a more rational decision beyond rationality. Take, for example, a household budget case studied by many economists. If a family has an extra $1,000, how should they spend it? Three famous economists who champion the rational economic man built models around this proposition. The first is the renowned economist Keynes, who proposed the marginal propensity to consume. He believed that poorer families are more likely to spend the money all at once, while wealthier families' spending habits are less affected by this $1,000. But 20 years later, the second economist, Friedman, presented the permanent income hypothesis. He argued that families would distribute this extra income evenly over 3 years, rather than spending it all in the first year as Keynes thought. Economist Modigliani didn't focus on short-term income. Compared to spending it in 1 or 3 years, his model is based on an individual's lifetime income. His life cycle hypothesis posits that extra income is averaged out for future consumption. It's clear that as economic research deepens, the economic man's perspective becomes longer term and smarter, and these models assume he has enough willpower to delay consumption. But the question is, where does this analysis end? Spending the money in 1 year or over 3 years are both rational behaviors for the economic man. But it seems there's always a smarter, more rational decision. But if you distribute the money over a lifetime or even longer to leave for descendants, rationality has no end, and the absolute rationality pursued by the rational economic man simply doesn't exist. However, it's important to note that Thaler's behavioral economics isn't a rejection of mainstream economics, but rather its development, or more accurately, its sublation. He aims to supplement and develop some shortcomings of mainstream economics, making economics more realistic and down to earth. Having proven that absolute rationality doesn't exist, afterwards Thaler turned his attention to irrational behaviors in daily life, asking what factors cause human irrational economic behaviors. To address this, Thaler proposed 3 famous theories: the endowment effect, mental accounting, and self-control. These are the key research achievements that earned him the Nobel Prize and form the core theories of behavioral economics. And, all right, in the second part today, I'll explain these 3 famous theories in detail and explore how they influence human decision-making. Number 3, first is the endowment effect. Endowment here comes from the characters in the Chinese phrase exceptional natural talent. The endowment effect means people value items they own more than identical items they don't own. Simply put, you place higher value on things you already possess. For example, if you just bought an apartment, when friends ask if it's worth buying, you'll insist it's great, say prices will rise, and even urge friends to buy there too. And that's the endowment effect. How did Thaler scientifically prove the endowment effect exists? This brings us to his classic mug experiment. Researchers prepared 11 mugs priced at $6 each and randomly selected 22 students. They gave mugs to 11 students, making them potential sellers. The remaining 11 became potential buyers. During trading, sellers set minimum acceptable prices while buyers set maximum prices they'd pay. Transactions happened when buyer offers exceeded seller minimums. For example, student A with a mug might set a $5 minimum, selling to any higher offer while buying cheaper mugs.
Trading continued until no buyer would pay any seller's minimum price. Then the market cleared, meaning supply met demand at equilibrium.
Supply-demand theory predicted about 11 transactions. But if Thaler's endowment effect existed, owners wouldn't sell easily, resulting in far fewer transactions. Indeed, Thaler was right. In the first round, 4 repeated experiments showed just 4, 1, 2, and 2 transactions, far below 11 each time. To make the experiment more rigorous, Thaler repeated it with pens instead of mugs, and results again fell far below economic supply-demand predictions. Notably, in the mug experiment, sellers' median reservation price averaged $5.25, while buyers' median was about half that. Similarly, in the pen experiment, the sell-to-buy price ratio was nearly 2 to 1.
Endowment effect.
The experiments show people are reluctant to give up what they own, partly due to psychological loss aversion. Well, now, for example, once I get a mug, I see it as mine. Selling it feels like a loss.
Through further research, Thaler found the pain of losing is about twice as intense as the joy of gaining.
Losing $100 from your pocket hurts as much as finding $200 delights you. This endowment effect not only explains economic phenomena, but helps people avoid traps and make better decisions. And here's an example from daily life. Suppose a struggling company in an inflation-free area cuts salaries by 7% this year. Would you accept?
38% of surveyed people said yes.
Now, suppose the same company faces 12% inflation, but gives a 5% raise. Would you accept? This time, 78% said yes, though technically a raise. With inflation, your real wage equals a 7% pay cut. Endowment effect makes us hate loss, trapping many. By fully considering endowment effect, people can achieve bounded rationality and improve decisions. The second factor in irrational decisions is mental accounting. So what is mental accounting? Simply put, people mentally categorize money from different sources or amounts into separate accounts. For example, we put salaries into a hard-earned wealth account, carefully saving as fixed deposits. Year-end bonuses are seen as extra blessings, put into a reward account for annual family trips, while lottery winnings go into a windfall account for careless splurging. Because of these different mental accounts, we often fail to consider economic decisions holistically and rationally, leading to mistakes. The theory involves three key concepts. First, mental budgeting. Mental budgeting means people assign different economic activities to separate accounts with independent budgets. Like in the cash era, families would divide money into envelopes, one for rent, one for groceries, one for utilities, etc. Many companies do similarly, with each department having its own budget and spending limits per category. So, how does mental budgeting affect decision-making? Consider an example. During the 2008 financial crisis, U.S. gas prices dropped from $4 per gallon to $2, a 50% plunge in 6 months. A family that spent $80 weekly on gas now only needed $40. A rational agent would think, first, cheaper gas means we can drive more. Second, the drop frees up $40 monthly. This money can be used for maximum utility, like covering bills or going on dates.
Reality? U.S. households didn't cut gas spending much. Many bought premium gas after the price drop.
Thus, a strange phenomenon emerged. During that crisis panic, most families scrimped on essentials but splurged on premium gas, a poor decision caused by mental budgeting. So, decisions. The second concept of mental accounting is transaction utility. If mental budgeting is about allocating funds, transaction utility explains how you judge if a purchase is worth it. Every consumer compares an item's price to their expected price. If the price is much lower than what you expected, you'll feel it's a great deal and very attractive. We say this transaction has high transaction utility. Imagine this. On a hot summer day, you're lying on the beach craving an ice-cold beer. Your friend goes to buy it. There are 2 places nearby selling the same beer, a fancy resort hotel and a small, run-down grocery store. When your friend returns and tells you which place it came from, how much would you be willing to pay? Survey results show people would pay $7.25 on average if it came from the resort hotel. But if the same beer came from the grocery store, that number drops to $4.10. It's the same beer in the same location, yet people pay differently based on where it was bought. And a key reason is psychological expectations. People expect higher prices at upscale hotels, so your reference price becomes higher. So $7.25 feels reasonable against that reference price. The transaction utility meets expectations. But if the grocery store charged that much, you'd feel ripped off. That's transaction utility in essence. In daily life, savvy businesses use transaction utility to influence our behavior, like marking a high suggested retail price, then discounting it for promotions. That suggested price sets your psychological expected utility. A $500 coat might make you hesitate, But if it's marked $2,000, discounted to $500, you're more likely to buy because you perceive high transaction utility. A great bargain. Beyond mental budgeting and transaction utility, how often we evaluate mental accounts also affects decisions.
Thaler notes that frequent checking of investment returns leads to impulsive, poor decisions.
This theory is most common in stock markets. Many stock traders check daily, happy when prices rise, panicked when they fall.
Amateur stock traders who check stocks frequently often sell too early or too late.
Conversely, those who rarely check their accounts tend to make more rational selling decisions at the right time. Now that we've covered mental accounting theory, how can we use it to avoid mistakes? For those prone to impulsive spending or financial decisions, the author advises focusing on money's intrinsic value and not getting tricked by mental budgets. For example, if you win 500 yuan in the lottery and want to splurge, think about other accounts like next month's rent or long-term plans like children's education funds. In business, many brands leverage mental accounting to successfully expand their markets.
For instance, a diamond is forever.
Such slogans are marketers' attempts to place jewelry in a lifelong love memorial account. This not only made diamond rings a wedding essential for most, broadening the market, but also invisibly boosted their profit margins. Besides the endowment effect in mental accounting, Thaler also proposed self-control theory to explain irrational behavior. This is the third theory we'll discuss. Generally, self-control in economics means sacrificing immediate benefits for future gains, like saving for retirement early, but Thaler points out self-control isn't that simple. He proposed the planner-doer model, suggesting that when making economic decisions, we have two inner selves, a planner and a doer. The two are always at odds. The planner self makes solid plans, cares about the future, delays gratification, and trades current patience for bigger future rewards. Whereas the doer self lives in the now, reacts instantly to the present, is passionate and moody. Every act of self-control involves ongoing conflict between these selves, making discipline tough. Here's a common issue for investors. Why is it so hard to stick to regular investing in stocks or funds? When people decide to invest regularly, it's often the planner self-dominating. At this point, people clearly know that long-term regular investing in stocks and funds has much higher expected returns than bonds or savings. It's a beneficial forward-looking financial strategy. For long-term investing, short-term market fluctuations and current gains losses are meaningless. Just stay consistent for long-term gains. But even knowing this, few stick to regular investing and reap long-term rewards. Why? Because during investing, the planner easily gets replaced by the doer. Thaler notes, people often have myopic loss aversion, prioritizing immediate gains. With present bias, we're controlled by short-term market swings and current P&L, leading to impulsive mistakes.
Like during market dips, we only see losses, ignoring how declines let us buy more shares cheaply long-term.
Many stop investing due to short-term drops, missing great accumulation opportunities. Similarly, during uptrends, some get drunk on temporary wins and rush to cash out. Remember, even then, the accumulated amount is usually too small for goals like kids' education or retirement. So amid this tug-of-war between planner and doer, rational self-control is tough.
But Thaler suggests methods to help planners counter doers: rewards or punishments, restricting freedom, and leveraging guilt.
Rewards or punishments, set milestones, hit one, get a tempting reward like a fancy dinner, miss it, face consequences. If you don't reach the goal, there's a penalty. And so restricting freedom is enforcement. Like if you keep spending investment money, link your salary to auto-invest right after payday, or have family change account passwords to prevent daily checking, blocking the doer's opportunities. Specific methods vary by person. The last method uses guilt to create hesitation during impulsive actions. For example, when tempted to splurge investment money, warn yourself, "This is for my child's education. How can I waste it?" Hopefully, these methods can help the planner and doer reconcile, enabling people to exercise more rational self-control and avoid wrong behaviors and decisions. And in 2017, Thaler won the Nobel Prize in Economics for these contributions to behavioral economics. But
The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences described his research as follows.
Richard Thaler incorporated psychologically realistic assumptions into economic decision analysis. By exploring consequences of bounded rationality, social preferences, and lack of self-control, he showed how these traits systematically affect individual decisions and market outcomes. One Nobel Committee member offered high praise. He said, "Thaler has made economics more humane." All right, that's all for Misbehaving. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time.